Almost nothing in this premiere happened the way George Martin wrote it. The show erased a fan favorite so cleanly that most of you didn't even notice she was gone. It invented an entire peace deal that exists in no version of the book. It turned a man into a woman. It moved a witch from one prince to another. It locked a queen in her own bedroom, and it took the single cruelest death in the source material and somehow made it hurt even more. And the strangest part? Half of these changes are brilliant. The other half quietly rewrite the heart of the story. Some of them book readers have been arguing about for months, and after this episode, they're going to argue even harder. So today, we're not going to walk through this premiere scene by scene in order like everybody else. We're going to do something better. We're going to put the book and the show side by side and sort every major change into 4 piles. What the show erased, what it invented out of nothing, what it flipped on its head, and what it got dead right. The page against the screen. Buckle up, because once you see how deep these changes go, you can't unsee them. First, one thing you have to understand, because it changes how you watch every single scene. Fire and Blood isn't a novel. It doesn't have a narrator who knows what really happened. It's written as a dry, dusty history book, a chronicle assembled more than a century after the fact by a maester named Gildane, full of gaps, rumors, and 3 different storytellers who flat out contradict each other. There's a filthy-minded court fool named Mushroom, who swears he was in the room for everything and saw it all, usually the most scandalous version. There's a prim septon who cleans everything up and makes it pious and proper. And there's the maester himself, scribbling it down 100 years later, trying to referee between the two. They disagree on who slept with whom, who betrayed whom. So the show was never just filming the book. There is no single book to film. Every episode is a giant pile of adaptation decisions. What to keep, what to cut, what to invent, and occasionally, what to completely flip on its head. The writers aren't transcribing a story. They're choosing which rumor to believe and filling in everything the maester left blank. Keep that in your head. Now let's get into it. Start with the biggest one, because it's hiding in the very first shot of the episode. The premiere opens far from any throne room. On Rhaena Targaryen, alone in a cold, misty valley, bonding with a wild dragon, the big brown brute the histories call Sheepstealer, one of the oldest and meanest wild dragons on all of Dragonstone. It's a gorgeous, quiet scene. There's just one problem. In the book, Rhaena never tames Sheepstealer. Somebody else does. A character the show has quietly, completely deleted. Her name is Nettles, and she is one of the most beloved figures in the entire book, precisely because she is a nobody. Nettles is a low-born, brown-skinned girl. No name worth recording. No Valyrian blood that anyone can prove. No army, no title, no claim. And she walks up to the most ill-tempered dragon alive, a beast that has eaten knights, and she tames it, not with magic, not with blood, with patience and nerve. Every single day she brings Sheepstealer a freshly killed sheep, gets a little closer, until one day the monster simply lets her climb onto its back. And just like that, a gutter girl with nothing becomes a dragon rider. Think about what that means in this world. It's one of the great underdog stories of the whole dance. The book makes you genuinely love her for it. She's brave, she's sharp, she's living proof that a dragon doesn't care about your bloodline or your title. It only cares about your nerve. And that one idea, that the most powerful weapon in the world might bond with a peasant instead of a prince, terrifies every highborn lord in Westeros down to his boots. Now watch what the show actually did. It took Nettles' famous dragon, it took Nettles' entire underdog, claimed the unclaimable storyline, and it stitched both of them onto Rhaena, while erasing Nettles herself as a separate person. One change, 2 characters rewritten at once. Rhaena, who in the book has the exact opposite arc, a Targaryen who can't find a dragon, who feels like a failure standing next to her dragon-riding twin sister Baela, and who eventually bonds not with a wild monster, but with a tiny, newborn pink hatchling called Morning, gets handed someone else's legend. And that erasure costs you more than just one fan favorite, because in the book, Nettles' story doesn't end with a dragon. It ends with a heartbreak. Nettles and Daemon Targaryen grow dangerously close at Harrenhal, close enough that Rhaenyra, by then half mad with grief and suspicion, comes to believe they're lovers. and she secretly sends an order to have Nettles executed. Daemon gets the warning to the girl first. He helps her slip away into the mountains in the dead of night. And that quiet betrayal, choosing the dragon girl over his own queen, is part of what isolates Daemon for his tragic final act. It's one of the saddest, most human threads in the entire chronicle. And by deleting Nettles, the show cuts it out at the root. You will never see it. Whether that's a clean simplification or the loss of something irreplaceable is honestly the very first debate this episode hands you, before the title card even lands. And she's not the only one being kept off the board on purpose. Listen closely when Aemond rattles off his reinforcements.
15,000 Hightower men presently march up the Manda with Daeron and his dragon.
15,000 Hightower men marching up from the south under Lord Ormond, alongside his youngest brother, Daeron, and Daeron's dragon. In the book, Daeron Targaryen is no footnote. He's the fourth child, the one fostered away in Old Town, and he is a dragon rider mounted on Tessarion, the Blue Queen. He rides at the head of the Hightower army as it carves a brutal, bloody path up through the Reach, the Honeywine, the battles that reshape the entire southern half of the war. By keeping Daeron completely off-screen for 2 whole seasons and only now letting his name slip out in a single line, the show is quietly cracking open a whole second front that the book has been running in parallel the entire time, and setting up a character who is about to become very important and very, very dangerous. So before we've even left the cold open, the show has already erased one beloved character, rewritten a second, and hidden a third. That's the pattern. Watch for it. Now flip to the opposite pile. The things that are pure show. The things George never wrote at all. The big one, the one that reshapes the entire back half of the season, is the deal. On Dragonstone, Rhaenyra's whole plan suddenly rests on a secret bargain with Alicent. Alicent, supposedly, has agreed to open the gates of the Red Keep from the inside and surrender her own son. And you need to hear this very clearly. That bargain does not exist in the book. Not in any version, not in Mushrooms, not in the Septons, not in the Maesters. Book Alicent never secretly meets Rhaenyra. She never offers to betray Aegon. She never tries to quietly broker peace. The two women are venomous, blood-deep enemies right to the bitter end. This entire reconciliation arc, the secret meeting, the offer to give up the city to spare the children, is one of the show's single biggest original inventions, built carefully across the back half of Season 2. So when Rhaenyra calmly talks about Alicent opening the gates for her, understand that you are watching a storyline George Martin simply never wrote. In the book, King's Landing falls for reasons that are far uglier and far less noble. Aemond flies off to Harrenhal on Vhagar, leaving the capital undefended by dragons, and once that protection is gone, the will to fight collapses. Mysaria's whisperers work the crowds. The Gold Cloaks decide they will not die for a king nobody can even find. The small folk turn. Bread runs short, bellies go empty, and a city quietly starts eating itself. The gates open not out of a mother's mercy, but out of a city's exhaustion. And when Rhaenyra finally walks into that conquered capital, the book's version is cold, and political, and a little bit hollow. She takes the Iron Throne, and then almost immediately starts losing the very people who handed it to her, taxing them, hunting her enemies, watching her own victory curdle within days. The show traded all of that grim political collapse for an intimate, tragic deal between two women. It is a genuinely different story, softer, more personal, more human. And whether that's better or worse, it is unmistakably an invention. And that invented deal is the fuel for one of the best scenes in the episode, the one where Aemond corners his mother, demands to know where she's been, and she lies, says she was in the Kingswood. It's tense, it's tragic, a mother and son each committing treason in the same breath. But it only works because the show handed Alicent a secret to hide in the first place. Book Alicent has no such secret, and no such scene. The show has basically written her an entirely new inner life. A woman, quietly broken by the war she helped start, sick of her own children, half wishing the whole thing would just end. It is, arguably, better drama than the book ever gives her. It is also, unmistakably, not the book. Then there's Aegon. The show invents a capture the book never does. On the road out of the city, hidden in that cart, Aegon's escape gets stopped at a checkpoint. He's recognized by the dragonfire burns from Rook's Rest, and he's seized as a living hostage. In the book, Larys's escape just works. Aegon gets clean away and stays hidden for a long, long time, and the simple fact that nobody can find the rightful king is a huge reason the war keeps dragging on. So this capture is a complete show addition. It turns a quiet, successful escape into an instant cliffhanger, and it physically drags Aegon back toward Rhaenyra, keeping all the threads knotted together instead of letting him vanish for half a season. It's invented, but it earns its place. Suddenly, the rightful king isn't just a missing piece somewhere off the board. He's a living prize in transit, and everyone who lays a hand on him is gambling their own neck on what he's worth. And the cruelest invention of all comes right at the end. As war erupts in the gullet, Rhaenyra wants to fly to the fight herself, and her own son, Jacaerys, locks her in her chambers to keep her safe. In the book, this never happens. Rhaenyra is never caged by her own children. It's a completely invented scene. But hold on to how it feels, because of what Jace does the very next moment. He walks away from that locked door, he climbs onto his dragon, and he flies straight into the battle himself, where he dies. So the show kills its heir right on schedule, exactly like the book does, but it makes the moment so much crueler than the book ever did, because of the scene it added right before. The last thing Jacaerys ever did was lock his own mother behind a door to protect her, which means Rhaenyra is still trapped in that room, helpless, pounding on the wood when her firstborn son drowns in the gullet. And she never even got to say goodbye. The book gives you the death, the show gives you the death and the guilt. That's an invention, and it's a devastating one. Some changes aren't additions, and they aren't cuts, they're swaps. The show takes something that exists in the book and quietly moves it somewhere else, and those are the changes that fans miss most often. Start at Harrenhal. The show gives Daemon a witch, Alice Rivers, feeding him visions in those cursed haunted ruins. But in Fire and Blood, Alice Rivers doesn't belong to Daemon at all. She belongs to Aemond. In the book, she's Aemon's lover and his seer at Harrenhal, the one whispering prophecies in his ear, eventually carrying his child. The show lifted her clean out of Aemon's story and dropped her into Daemon's, and cranked the supernatural dial way up while doing it. Book Alice is mostly a shadowy rumor an old nurse people whisper about. Show Alice is a full-on mystical engine driving a Targaryen prince's entire arc. That heavy, dreamlike, magic-soaked Harrenhal you've been watching is almost entirely the show's creation. And it isn't a small tweak, because in the book, Alice is bound up in Aemon's fate, his prophecies, his last desperate ride, his unborn child. Pulling her across to Daemon doesn't just relocate a character. It quietly rewires whose ending she's going to haunt. Then, there's a change you can spot with your own two eyes. The Triarchy Admiral leading the fleet to break the blockade, Sharako Lohar. In Fire and Blood, Sharako Lohar is a man, a famously eccentric, flamboyant Lysene warlord, the kind of larger-than-life sellsword captain the book loves. The show casts the role as a woman. On paper, it's one word. He becomes she. But it's a real departure, and it tells you something important. The show is perfectly comfortable rewriting the people, not just the plot. When it suits the story they want to tell, a character's gender, history, even their entire personality is on the table. And look around Aemon's throne room and notice who is gone. Especially Otto Hightower. The show wrote Otto out early, dismissed his hand by a resentful Aegon, and shoved off stage before the real slaughter even begins. But in the book, Otto sticks around far longer, as the cold, steady, calculating brain of the Greens. And his ending is brutally specific. When Rhaenyra finally takes King's Landing, she captures Otto Hightower and has his head struck off, a grim, public execution of the man who held the Greens together. The show swapped that for a quiet, almost bureaucratic political exit. And that one swap completely changes the flavor of the entire Hightower collapse, from a bloody, deserved comeuppance into a sad old man being managed out of a job. Now flip it around one more time. Because for every change, for every erasure and invention and swap, the show keeps the book's skeleton absolutely intact. And some of it nails so perfectly, it should make book readers cheer. Whispering in Rhaenyra's ear now is Mysaria, the woman once called the White Worm. Her journey is one of the show's better expansions on a very thin book thread. In Fire and Blood, Mysaria is mostly just a name, a shadowy informant, a former mistress of Daemon's who runs a web of spies. The show takes that little sketch and builds a whole person, a former pleasure house girl off the streets of the capital who survives betrayal and fire to end up as the Queen's spymaster. And the book backs up exactly why she's so valuable, because when King's Landing finally falls, it's whisperers and turned gold cloaks, Mysaria's exact kind of quiet invisible work, that actually open the gates, not a noble bargain. The show built her up. The book explains why she matters. Those rough new dragon riders turning up are the dragon seeds, and they come straight out of one of the book's most important and most horrifying events. The sowing of the seeds. Desperate for more riders, Rhaenyra's side throws open the doors and calls for anyone with even a single drop of Targaryen blood to come and try to claim the masterless dragons. And it is a bloodbath. Dozens are roasted, crushed, or eaten alive in front of a screaming crowd. The dragons panic and lash out at the mob, fire and teeth everywhere. And for every commoner who walks away, a rider, a dozen more are simply gone, ash on the dragon pit floor. The book does not flinch from a second of it. But a handful succeed, and they matter enormously. Hugh Hammer claims the Bronze Fury Vermithor, Ulf the White claims Silverwing, Adam of Hull claims Seasmoke, and yes, in the book, Nettles claims Sheepstealer. There's that missing name one more time. And here's the thing the show is quietly setting up with these new riders. It's where the dragon seeds, the whole realm just gambled the war on them, begin to learn what they actually signed up for. That a dragon makes you powerful, right up until the exact second it makes you the single biggest target on the battlefield, and that the lords who strapped you to it will spend your life like loose coin the moment it's convenient. Up north, Daemon holds Harrenhal while the Riverlands turn into a slaughterhouse, the Lannister host broken and fleeing toward the God's Eye. The bones of this are completely book accurate. The Riverlands are the grinding, bloody heart of the whole war, and the Chronicle is full of exactly this kind of pointless, churning death. Even that small, telling detail about returning the river dead to the mud instead of feeding them to the dragons is the show's way of capturing that rot in a single quiet moment. And the red dragon prowling that battlefield, Caraxes, the bloodworm, is Daemon's mount in the book just as he is on screen. The lean, scarred, vicious old monster that has tasted more blood than almost any dragon alive. Out on the water, the long-promised trap finally springs. The Triarchy, the alliance of the free cities of Lys, Myr, and Tyrosh, sails in to break the Valerian blockade. And that blockade is no small thing. In the book, the sea snake's ships choking the Blackwater are slowly starving King's Landing. Bread riots, empty bellies, a capital quietly eating itself, which is half the reason the city is so ripe to fall the instant the dragons fly off. And underneath it all is the grudge, the burning 20-year hatred between the Triarchy and Corlys Velaryon, the sea snake who hunted their pirates and cell sails in the Stepstones for 2 bloody decades. That bad blood is dead true to the spirit of the book. And it all builds to the bloodbath this entire premiere has been pointing at, the Battle of the Gullet. In Fire and Blood, this is one of the single most devastating battles of the whole Dance of the Dragons. The Triarchy fleet smashes into the Velaryon ships, and Dragonstone itself in a chaos of fire and drowning men. Thousands die, and it costs the Blacks dearly in dragons. Young beasts and their brand new riders drag down beneath the waves together. Its most famous casualty is Prince Jacaerys Velaryon himself, Rhaenyra's heir, the boy meant to inherit everything. In the book, Jace throws his dragon Vermax into the fight. Vermax is brought down in the carnage, and Jace is killed in the water. And here, the show stays completely faithful to the page. You can see it, Jacaerys low over the waves on Vermax, diving into the slaughter, and the battle dragging both dragon and rider down beneath the surface. This is the moment the dance stops being a war anyone could win, and becomes a thing that simply consumes everyone who touches it. And one last detail worth comparing: the scar that gives Aegon away. The episode pins his burns on the Battle of Rook's Rest, and inside that scene a character credits Rhaenys and her dragon for the deed. But here's the darker truth that both the book and the show are actually pointing at. At Rook's Rest, it was Aemond, on Vhagar, who let the dragonfire fall on his own brother. The realm blames Rhaenys. The Greens never admit what really happened, but Aegon was burned half to death by his own family. his own brother choosing power over blood. That quiet act of attempted fratricide is one of the darkest threads in the entire source material. And it's hiding right there, inside a throwaway line about an old scar. And keep one eye on who the show is deliberately keeping in the shadows. Helena. She's named in passing, she's folded into the deal as one of the people to be spared, but you barely see her all hour. That is not an oversight. That is a setup. In Fire and Blood, Helena is the realm's quiet, broken prophet, a gentle, fragile woman, shattered by blood and cheese. The two assassins who slipped into the Red Keep and butchered her little son in his bed, while they forced her to choose which of her children would die. She never recovers. And her dreams aren't sad background detail, they come true. The book hangs one of the entire war's biggest turning points on her, because when Helena dies, falling or thrown from a window of the Red Keep, the small folk become utterly convinced that Rhaenyra had her murdered. And that grief curdles, almost overnight, into the riot that storms the dragon pit and slaughters the chained dragons in the dark. One of the most shocking, tragic events of the whole dance. So when the show keeps Helena half-dreaming in a corner and quietly tells you that her dreams are about to matter, it isn't being lazy, and it isn't wasting her. It is loading a bomb that the book has already shown us going off. Remember her. So step all the way back and look at the whole pattern at once. This premiere keeps the book's big skeleton completely intact. It isn't trying to film Fire and Blood page for page. It's arguing with it, picking which rumor to believe and which tragedy to sharpen. And here's the part that makes that fun, instead of frustrating. Neither version is the one true story, because Fire and Blood never claims to be. The book is, quite literally, a record of arguments between people who weren't there. So the show isn't really betraying the book, it's just adding one more voice to a history that was always meant to be retold, reshaped, and disputed. If I missed a change, and on this episode there are a lot of them, drop it in the comments. And subscribe, because next time we're doing the exact same thing, beat for beat, page against screen. I'll see you there.